Good afternoon. Oh my gosh, the sun is shining. I didn't even wear a coat in here. I am so excited about all of that. No, I didn't. Today is rest day. Today is rest day. I should have because it's beautiful out. Anyway, can I get you to do a roll call, please? I think we are all here. That's it, right? Yeah. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I need a motion to adopt the minutes of, oh, where am I here? Thank you. Commissioner Brenner, Commissioner Watton. Is there any questions, polls, anything? Seeing none, all in favor? Great. General Manager Holmes, if you'd like to do your report, that would be great.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. CEO Baxter here, Chair Henry, staff, and members of the public joining today. Just a quick overview of highlights from January from the GM information report. Pleased to report preventable collisions, again, continue our downward trend. So again, down relative to a year ago, which is great news. Ridership was down, and I'll have a little bit more to say this on the next slide, it was down 19.5% in January of this year compared to January of last year. But there's reasons for that. Ridership with on-demand was pretty consistent with the year ago, but on-time performance was impacted a little lower, and service availability, as noted, it's lower than we expect, well below target, and it is having an impact on ridership and OTP with the on-demand network. So Anthony's going to talk to you a little bit about what's happening and what we are doing about that. So related to the scheduled ridership, and this would also translate over to on-demand as well, but if you see here, it's a really cool graph that shows ridership relative to throughout the month. And the big dips in ridership you see there, those correlate to snow events that happened. And, you know, it's not unusual that when we have a big snow, that for that day or the day after, maybe even 2 days, depending on the snow clearing, we do see reduced ridership because it's a little more challenging for people to get around in places. So I just wanted to sort of demonstrate that to you, that snow has a big impact on ridership, particularly those significant events that we see. And we saw 2 in January. The other issue in January that contributed to our ridership data was the timing of the Ontario Tech and Durham College going back to class. They were a week later this year than the year before, and you can see at the front end of the graph how the ridership, that dark line of ridership, was lower than the previous year, which is the hatch line. And again, that's because classes didn't resume the same as they did last year. So that as well has an impact on that monthly ridership number. We took a look at temperatures as well. When it's really cold, it's a challenge as well to get out. But, you know, temperature doesn't have as big an impact on ridership. People tend to brave the cold and things when they have to get to work, to classes, etc. It's really those big snow events when people figure they maybe can't get around as easily, or they're just as comfortable to stay home, that they choose not to ride. So I'm going to pass it over to Anthony now to sort of talk to you a bit about what's happening with our on-demand service availability. And we've mentioned this before, that our target is 99.5%. We're well below that in January at 91.5%. And, you know, we've been very open as well that DRT, we are accountable for our performance of on-demand. However, that said, you know, the vehicle availability challenges that our contractors encountered since November is concerning, and staff have been working very closely with Viago over that time to address these service performance deficiencies. And today, Anthony's going to share with you sort of what's being done to address that current challenge. Anthony?
Afternoon, everyone. So as Bill mentioned, you know, our service availability on demand has been challenged the last few months. It started with what we thought was a bit of a blip in November. It's now turned into about a 3-month consistent blip, which is not satisfactory to our customers and the service that we expect. So, we communicate with our service provider, Voyago, on a very regular basis to review service parameters and how they're actually operating. We've amplified the amount of conversations that we've had with our service provider in order to understand how we're going to get back on track as soon as possible. So you have 5 buckets up in front of you on the screen in the presentation that speaks to the different parameters that Voyago's already started working on and will continue to work towards. They've committed to full service restoration by mid-April, and we will be working with them very closely to make sure that we can get back to that full service restoration by mid-April.
Can I ask a question? What happens if by mid-April it doesn't come back on track?
So there are different commercial levers that we can pull, and at the end of the day, we have a close working relationship with Voyago, which we will continue to embrace and work closely with them. But at the end of the day, we have a contract which has service parameters, and if we need to leverage those various commercial levers within that contract, we will pull those levers. Some of them are more significant than others, so we'll have to look at
lever like a penalty.
It could either be a penalty, it could be contract breach. There's a number of different opportunities within the contract that we would work closely with our legal teams in order to understand what the impact could be. As severe as we would have to explore, what does contract breach look like? Does that potentially mean ending the contract? Like, we would have to look through all of the various elements through that established contract to understand what our options are in order to make sure the service gets back to where we expect.
Okay.
That's not in the interest of Voyago either, right? It's a mutual interest for sure. So I'm confident that they're going to meet all their obligations. They've already shown the behaviors to correct the service availability, but we're proactively working to ensure we understand what our options are in case we get to mid-April and we're not there.
Okay, thank you.
Sticking with on-demand, we had committed to coming back to tech with a summary of what happened on October 20th. So October 20th, it's kind of a dark day in our on-demand service delivery. For those that remember, it was the day the Amazon Web Services went down, impacting businesses and private citizens across the world. So what does that mean for us? The day started somewhat uneventful. Staff noticed that they were unable to engage with our software. So we use a software for our dispatchers and reservationists to book, edit, adjust rides for our on-demand customers. They noticed all the information was there at the beginning of the day, but they weren't able to make any service adjustments. So for customers calling in to cancel or needed to defer, we weren't able to actually interact with the system. So a little bit strange, and we started investigating what was going on. But we were able to start the day by picking up customers and transporting them to their booked destinations. The system in and around 8:30 that morning came back to life with full functionality, and we thought, oh, whatever the blip was, we'll hear back from our service providers. Everything should be fine. Immediately for it to crash in totality on the heels of it coming back online. At the time, of course, we didn't know that Amazon Web Services was having this significant of a problem, and we were able to take customers to their destinations. This is where we started hearing stories from customers, but, well, you took me to my destination this morning. What do you mean you can't take me home? The system is what we use to know who our customers are, where our customers are traveling, the customer's contact information. We weren't even able to see what rides we had provided prior to the full system outage because, well, the system has a 99.9 service uptime availability. This is something that has never happened before. It was sort of unprecedented. And we were, frankly, handcuffed, not being able to even know what customers we had transported that day or where they were in order for us to get them home. Now, that's obviously quite poor for customers who are trying to get somewhere. A deep investigation, both from our side and working closely with the system provider VIA to understand how do we avoid this in the future. And the biggest action that has come out of this, in collaboration with the system provider VIA, we are able to download. So at the end of the day, we download a daily manifest So before the last dispatcher goes home, we basically do a hard copy download of everything that's booked in the system as of the end of the service day. So in the unlikely event that this was ever to happen again, yes, we're reverting back to a manual process, and it would take a little bit more time in terms of tracking where the customers are and if there's any edits or the desire to book new trips. It would be much slower, and it'd be a little more inefficient in terms of our ability to find space on vehicles for ad hoc bookings. But we would at least know exactly who we've transported, because as trips are being executed, we can now manually cross off, oh, we've taken John Doe to place X, we've taken Jane Doe to place Y, and then at least we know that that's where we've taken them, so we can correlate that with a trip later in the day in order to get them home. So it may not be a perfect solution, but it's an option that we can at least provide service continuity to our customers in the unlikely event this was ever to happen again. From the VIA system and the platform standpoint, you can see in the last point, there's a whole series of rigors that they have also explored in order to ensure uptime if for some reason their cloud-based system was to ever drop off again. And I'm going to hand it back over to Bill with a few more on-demand updates.
So I think I'm going to leave on-demand alone for a while. I think we've talked enough about that so far. But I do have one last note to make, and it's about efficiencies and again, getting more capacity. And we've talked about that a lot. This committee, this council are making record investments in public transit for the past 3 years, but we still know that we're still oversubscribed and we still need more investment. But so we keep looking for ways of how can we create more capacity with the existing resources we have. And working with our partner VIA, one of the items that we're going to be implementing is a process to optimize our trips. So, the day before, we need about an hour, 45 minutes for the system to work, and then about 15 minutes to validate. But we need about an hour the evening before to do this process. It'll maximize our trips to vehicles and free other vehicles up for other trips. What that'll mean is that between 5:30 and 6:30 each night, we'll take a pause on accepting new trip requests so that we can maximize those, go through that optimization process, and then we'll resume trip bookings again at 6:30. So again, we're looking at implementing that on March 14th, and we've started that communication already with our customers so that they're aware that there is that pause in the day that we need to work on the system, but then they can resume again at 6:30. Some other updates that we wanted to make you aware of. March 18th is Transit Worker Appreciation Day. DRT now is up to close to 750 transit workers in DRT alone. But there's many dedicated regional staff as well. Our colleagues in Works and Finance, the Office of the CAO, Chair Henry's office, Community Growth and Economic Development, Legal, Public Health. They're all involved as well in one way at making sure that we're able to do the great work that we do and provide to our customers. We're operating 365 now, so every day of the year, 24 hours a day. I think with the exception of Christmas night, even Christmas night we're going. So we're 365 every day of the year, 24 hours a day. So that's awesome. So it's an opportunity for the public, for us to recognize the great work that your transit team does for the residents of Durham. And we'll be promoting that again through various channels over the next week or two. So that we've had great response from our public before in terms of responding to the great work and reaching out to thank the transit employees for the great work that they do. Bill C-14, Federal Bill C-14, the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act, it included an important item in it, an amendment that's very relative to public transit these days. And in the past, there was always some protection there when it came to sentencing for transit operators, so the bus operators in our case. But that didn't extend to other transit workers, and we hear often, whether it's fare enforcement officers in different jurisdictions, customer service representatives, maintenance employees, and others who are out and about in the network, who unfortunately at times are subject to assault from the public. And this amendment, it's now going to the Senate. It's passed its third reading, but it would provide those protections to all transit workers so that would be a mitigating factor when it came to sentencing that the judge would be able to look at. So we're very pleased as an industry that this is moving forward. Wanted to highlight as well just a Presto system modernization. So that's our fare payment system that we have. And Presto's been working on modernizing their back end and moving from, and we had this discussion just before tech about going from a stored card value to an actual account-based system so that transactions are in real time. You'll be able to load in real time, and just many benefits to moving in that direction. So that's starting. They're going to be starting, they have started converting the cards, so it'll be a gradual process over a number of weeks. Well, they'll be converting existing cards from the stored value to account-based system. And when they make that change, what's happening with the new system is that the overdraft protection is removed. So if you recall when Presto was first launched, if I had 20 cents on my card and I tapped, I'd go into overdraft, but I'd be able to ride. With the new system, you have to have that fare on your card to be able to ride, so it doesn't go into overdraft. So some customers may see that when they tap, they need to provide a valid fare. But with the Presto system and the open payment with debit, credit, et cetera, those options are still there until they have a time to reload that card. So we just wanted customers to be aware of that transition that's happening and the potential that may happen if they don't have enough value on their e-purse for that trip. One last item I wanted to make you aware of, and we've had this discussion here before, just the value of public transit. I know I'm speaking to the converted, but to the economic development of the community, the health of our community, public transit is critical for that. Recently, in the fall 2025 federal budget, we were really pleased to see sort of mention of the baseline funding, and we have our $53 million over 10 years that we're working with the federal government now and finalizing that funding agreement. There's that metro region stream, which is $2 billion a year that is still, we're working with the province. We're working with the federal government on moving that forward, which is exceptional. But there was no mention of the $5 billion sort of targeted stream. So we were sort of waiting on pins and needles to kind of hear what was going to happen there. And it kindly came out in the last few weeks that, that money's now been transferred to the larger community building fund that the federal government has put up. And there's been significant pushback across the country. So our Canadian Urban Transit Association conducted research through NANOS just to, again, get broader feeling nationally from the public about the loss of that dedicated transit funding and the impacts that it will have. And I would just highlight again to you from that work that was recently done by NANOS that 87% of Canadians feel that public transit is important to the quality of life in their communities. And 72% of those surveyed, again, we're calling on the restoration of that dedicated funding. So I know our National Association continues to advance that. I know we do as well through our government relations efforts. And anytime we're talking with our colleagues and at the provincial and federal level as well in terms of the need for that dedicated funding and just the general public as well are just expressing that need to continue to advance public transit across the country. And that's the presentation for today. Thank you.
I have Commissioner Pettingill.
Yes, thank you, and through you. Thank you for that marvelous report. I'm always incredibly impressed with, and this goes for the last report on the agenda today too, the thoughtfulness in the attention to all the details, like how, the considerations that are made by the team into what people need and how to get them to where they need to get to safely. Would you please talk about why we use a service provider for on-demand? And I'm sure that's something that was determined a long time ago, but would you please just go over it?
Sure. So that is a more recent move that we made. DRT has always used third-party contract providers for, it used to be the specialized service that we provided. We always had contracted taxis since DRT was formed in 2020. And we were really interested in how can we, again, we're always looking at how can we do more with the resources we have. We always had a contracted service as well for our scheduled service that ran out of Whitby for years and years and years. What we were able to do is we worked with our great partners at Unifor, and we agreed that, if we could bring in that work internally, so bring in-house that scheduled service that was contracted out, and if we were able to fully contract out the on-demand service, we could actually put more service on the street. So that was the rationale behind it. We did do a recent study last last spring, perhaps, that we reported on, and we did an evaluation after year one of the transition. And again, from a quality perspective, both on the schedule and the on-demand side, again, great benefits and the cost advantage of taking that direction as well. I might be misquoting, but it was roughly $2 million in cost avoidance as a result of doing that we could then make sure that we're delivering that much service on the scheduled and on-demand side. So it was a cost-effective solution, and continue to work with the private sector, but also ensuring that the internal service delivery on the scheduled side was important for us because of the challenges that historically happened with having this piece in the middle delivered by a third-party vendor not being able to manage that. So it was a whole consideration of the entire service that led us to that decision.
So you're saying it's considerably less expensive to have another party provide the service?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I noticed in one of the reports that one of the common complaints for on-demand riders is the number of people in a vehicle. And I guess that when people are on something like a bus or a train, they understand how much space is allotted to them, and they're in their mindset, they're familiar with that. But when they get into a car, they're thinking more Uber or taxi. So I guess and I noticed that there are 9 new vehicles, and I think they're all minivans or some version of that. What are the metrics on buying more small cars and making more trips versus, I guess, buying vans, but having people have to wait longer sometimes to get their ride or to get a ride home? And how do you figure out what the best option is for people? And how can you respect their kind of need for, or what they'd imagine they should be riding in, like in a car by themselves, leaving exactly when they want to, getting picked up when they want to? Are people getting used to the idea of the vans? And is that from an economic perspective, is that much more effective to purchase a vans than small cars?
Thank you. And through the chair, that's a multidimensional question. But I will say that, approximately, and this number we might have to update, but I know generally 70% of our customers registered with Specialized are mobile, and they don't have a mobility device and can travel in a sedan, for example. So what our planning team do is they take a look at what are those restrictions for people. We need to make sure we have the ProMaster vans, which are a larger van that can accommodate mobility devices. Same thing with an accessible van. So we do have to have a proportion of those in the fleet to meet those needs. And again, how the system works and maximizes efficiencies is it will use every seat on that van or to fill it up as it's in service. So there may be one person in a mobility device that we pick up in the van, but then there's 5-6 others that we can pick up who can ambulate and don't need that restraint system. So it really takes all those factors in consideration. The more vehicles we have, the more drivers there would be, the more expensive the service would be to deliver. That's the other part of the equation is, the more drivers and the more vehicles, so the less capacity of the vehicle, the more it's going to cost us to deliver. And just the other point I wanted to mention, I know, again, when we launched the integration of the service, amalgamating both customers in the vehicle, at that point, there was, we received regular feedback that people didn't think there should be 3 people in a vehicle. That was also on the sort of near the tail end of COVID, and there was still a lot of sensitivities around that at the time. I don't recall, I haven't seen that level of concern now about 3 people in a vehicle at times, particularly when it's getting where they need to go. So I think some of that has subsided as people have become used to the service and how it's delivered.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. That's it.
Commissioner Brenner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to General Manager Bill. Thank you, as always, excellent presentation. No, I'm not going to talk about on-demand. But I do want to ask you about, in your last slide, when you were talking about the federal cut from the budgets and some of the lobbying, obviously through CUDA. Mm-hmm. Have we considered locally, for example, and we've done this with our city councillors from time to time, have we given any consideration inviting the MPs to ride the buses, to whether it's going from Brooklyn into Pickering or whatever. But set a time, invite them to come on the bus, give them an opportunity to talk to constituents. Same as we've done with Pickering councillors. That's something that you think we could pursue and should pursue?
So through the chair, that's not something that we have done yet. At this point, I know with some local councils, we've done that, particularly in Pickering, and gone for rides on new routes and things, which is very beneficial. I'd be happy to speak with Alison Burgess in our GR group to see, what would be possible and realistic for us to do. So I'd happy to take that away.
Okay, because I know that our Pickering Brooklyn MP, for example, I think would benefit to have a champion from the MPs in Ottawa to keep the pressure on as well.
Okay, we'll take that away. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, and thank you, General Manager Holmes, for the presentation. Just to follow up on what Commissioner Pettingill spoke about. So we have these vans. What's the capacity of these vans? 6, 7, 8 passengers, is it?
So through the chair, you're getting into a little more detail than I know. So I'm going to pass it to ask Jack Phelan, who our supervisor of service planning. He may have a little more detail on that.
Thank you. The capacity of the vehicles ranges from 3 people in a sedan to the ProMasters, which, depending on their configurations and depending on how many wheelchairs are in the vehicle at that time, could be as many as 8.
Okay. So just as a follow-up, I don't know if you remember back then I had asked you where the buses are not being filled up, why would we not use smaller vehicles? And I believe your answer was the cost would be the same, hiring drivers, etc. So if you have an area that they have 5 or 6 folks that goes to work on a regular basis, 8 to 5, whatever, is there a way you could coordinate that instead of them having the call in and what, is there a methodology that you could use to pick these folks up and
So through the chair,
transport them?
That's not a service DRT provides in terms of coordinating individual trips and groups of trips. That's not something that we do.
No, you
However, if those customers are traveling with us, I'll use the on-demand as an example. If they're all looking to travel with on-demand and they're looking to travel at the same time, that's where the pooling of the trips. So, if they're in the same area, it's, again, depending on how the algorithm works, they may all get the same vehicle. There may be 1 or 2 different vehicles, but the system would work that out. So if they're looking to travel, our system would ensure that was possible.
That's what I'm asking, if there's a method to make sure that instead of having 4 or 5 vehicles going to the same area, for folks that usually travel at the same time, whether they're going to a job or not, if there's a way to coordinate that and make that more efficient.
So through the chair, and again, I think it's something we hear regularly about is from some areas where we have a group traveling to the same destination being picked up, they're saying, well, there's 3 or 4 vehicles coming. Why isn't there just 1 vehicle coming? It really has to do with what else is that vehicle doing. If we recall when we made the transition and amalgamated the service, basically the system was reserved for those areas where we were picking up 4 or 5 people at once, so nobody else could access those vehicles. It would then take them to those areas, and that reduced our capacity greatly. Now with the system we have today and the software that we have today, it maximizes all the vehicles because people may not be going in exactly the right direction. There may be already a trip booked to that vehicle that has to happen. So it really does maximize that capacity. So just because there may be 2 or 3 or 4 vehicles coming to one location to pick people up around the same time, it doesn't mean it's inefficient. It's actually more efficient because those vehicles are doing multiple things once they leave that place or before they get to that place. Whereas in the past, nothing was happening because we were holding those vehicles so we could be there at 4 o'clock or 8 o'clock to be able to do that. So it is actually more efficient, and it's something it's counterintuitive sometimes to people that why are you having 4 when we could have 1? It's really maximizing, the number of trips that we can deliver with those vehicles.
And through the chair, follow-up question. How long is the wait time for, say you went to pick up somebody at a location and there's somebody waiting that's going to be taking the same vehicle? How long is the wait time for someone to get in the vehicle actually? Would you wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever.
So through the chair, maybe I'll ask Anthony if he can talk about, how much time do we give when we arrive at a location? What's our standard time that we wait before we move on?
Thank you. So through the chair, two different standards. Are customers eligible for specialized transit? Within the booking window, the vehicle shows up at the customer's location. If the customer's not there, they wait 5 minutes. The driver will wait 5 minutes and then initiate a phone call through their dispatch to see if the customer is still intending to come. Then based on what that information, based on that phone call, the decision is either made to wait a couple minutes further or they move on to their next ride. For on-demand customers, as long as the vehicle shows up within that booking window, the customer has 1 minute to present themselves or we move on.
Okay, so that's standard and that's strictly adhered to, I presume. Because I had a cause or a complaint about the wait time from folks. Okay, thank you.
That is all I have. Now we have Jack Palin coming up for the policy and planning for Durham Region Transit. Sounds exciting.
Thank you. I'm not sure I can promise exciting, but important.
Okay, yes, okay, we'll take that.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Jack Fallon. I'm here to talk about Driving Durham, which is DRT's next 5-year service strategy. Just a little bit about what a service strategy is in this context, what it is and what it isn't. So our service strategies anticipate residential and non-residential growth, the feedback that we've received from customers and stakeholders over the last little while, as well as regional goals to try to anticipate where service is going to operate in the next 5 years. Service levels in the plan are consistent with previous planning exercises, especially the transit service and financing strategy. So the service strategy articulates where and when service will operate, not necessarily the amount of service, which would have been covered in those previous plans. Now, circumstances can change over a 5-year period. If you think back 5 years ago, whether we could have successfully predicted every aspect of development in the region right now. So the plan will be reviewed at its midpoint. It also undergoes essentially annual review, if not editing, as we go through the annual service planning and budgeting process to make sure that the initiatives that we're putting forward each year reflect the current pace and status of development and growth in the region. Just because something's on the plan for year 2, if that subdivision hasn't even broken ground yet, we would find another priority. The route ahead was the previous service strategy running from 2022 to 2025. Normally we're on a 5-year cadence for these service strategies, but that cadence was interrupted. We are resuming that 5-year cycle now, and so this strategy will take us through 2030, at which point we will come back with a new 5-year service strategy. The route ahead was focused on rebuilding ridership from a 2021-2022 standpoint. We were still feeling the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. We were also anticipating and seeing changing travel behaviors, rise of work from home, as well as just all sorts of other disruptions to the normal patterns that we had been seeing. We took the opportunity to use that service strategy as a foundation for long-term growth and to lay down a foundation, a network of high-quality services that would stand the test of time. Some successes that came from the route ahead, first and foremost, is our ridership growth over the last 5 years. Despite some recent trends when it comes to post-secondary travel, ridership growth has been strong and came back faster than expected in the route ahead. I think this was supported in large part due to not just the service hour growth, but some of the focuses that we had, including improved access to recreational destinations, so service to the zoo and to Rouge Urban and National Park. We have service now in the summers to waterfronts in Pickering and Ajax, as well as using on-demand and some scheduled service to access trailheads and other recreational destinations throughout the region. The 24/7, the all-day, all-night service on Highway 2 on Simcoe Street and on Harmony Road, minus 1 hour in the very early morning, and on-demand throughout the rest of the urban area has also been a huge success and puts us at the top or second on the list of GTHA agencies when it comes to having 24/7 service on major corridors after the TTC. We also have been making continual adjustments to the service delivery model that we use in various parts of the region. We have scheduled service and on-demand now and are able to adjust which service delivery model is used at which time to serve the demand that we're seeing most efficiently. And this has allowed us to be a little bit flexible and to capture a large part of the region with service without oversupplying with frequent scheduled service or undersupplying without a peak period bus, for instance. We've also made huge strides in the accessibility of our infrastructure. Aside from occasional stops in construction zones or that may have been very recently installed, all of our bus stops have hard surfaces. Many have shelters, bike racks. We are now installing standalone lighting at stops where that would be a safety or an accessibility improvement. And all of these things help support the comfort of users on the service. So Driving Durham is building on those past successes. The service improvements that we have planned are guided rather by 5 sort of pillars. And these kind of explain why we come to the conclusions about various service initiatives. The first is availability, and this is really about the when more than the where, although both are important. And this is about making sure that we are operating when customers have the need to travel. There are times where a peak-only bus route is appropriate because that's when people in that industrial area might be traveling. And there are other parts of the region where other service schedules are more appropriate. And so we want to make sure that we're aware of customer demand and meeting that demand. Innovation, so customer experience should be enhanced by technology and creative solutions. This could take a wide range of examples. This could be customer communication. This could be planning and scheduling tools. This could be ways that we design bus stops and roadway infrastructure and working with our regional partners to do that. Reliability is really important, and so we do recognize that the service that we operate or offer needs to be frequent. It needs to be delivered as scheduled to the extent that is within our control to do, and to respond to those evolving travel patterns. So, we don't want to be running high quality service at the time of day when nobody needs it. Safety is top of mind always. Customer and employee safety is always the top priority. This has a lot to do with the way we build infrastructure. This has implications on bus stops and is really kind of through a thread throughout all of our planning and service delivery. And finally, growth. And service should be available when residents move into new communities so that we can build transit-friendly habits for households. We know we will never be able to be there before the first person takes occupancy in a new area, but getting in there as soon as practical, as soon as the roadway allows, as soon as construction activity allows, and as soon as that there is sufficient demand to get in there. On demand is a critical tool for this. In that respect, we often can get in there for the first person's occupancy, and then service will grow from there. As part of developing this plan, we have looked at our sort of customer bases, our customer groups. So just to give you a sense of where we're at in terms of the groups and trip purposes on our system, about a third of our travel is related to post-secondary travel in one way or another. This is primarily UPass travel, but we also carry post-secondary students out of Durham to campuses in Scarborough or to Connect to Go Transit for access to campuses elsewhere in the GTHA. About 15% of our travel is between Durham and Toronto using a combination of GO and TTC. Most of this is headed to downtown Toronto via the GO train. The mode share there, the percentage of people traveling in downtown Toronto on transit is extraordinarily high. This reflects parking and traffic pressures and the distances that you might need to travel and the quality of the GO train for getting in and out of downtown. And so making sure that we're providing convenient connections to the train is important, as well as to other regional connections. However, about half of our trips are internal trips to Durham that are just sort of general purpose travel. This is people traveling to work, for shopping, recreational purposes, appointments, social visits, people just getting around the region. And so this is where a lot of our attention is focused, despite those kind of really specific needs that you might see in a GO Transit commuter. We focus our network on building a sort of anywhere to anywhere travel model. We, to some extent, don't care why you're traveling, but recognize the demand is there, and that by building an anywhere to anywhere network, where by using 1 or 2 or 3 routes and some transfers, you can get across the region, supports a wide range of travel options. About 10% of our customers are youth, so high school students generally. This is an important growth market that we're focused on. These customers, if they have a positive transit experience in their formative years, more likely to remain transit riders over time. Another growing customer group, slowly growing, but growing, is seniors. Population projections for the region do show that becoming a larger share of the regional population, and so is an important consideration. Customers using TAP, the Transit Assistance Program, make up about 8% of Presto TAPs. These are discounted fares available for Ontario Works and ODSP recipients. These are really critical tools for reducing barriers to employment, to healthcare, to education, to essential life things, to help support customers who are on or trying to get off of those programs. And finally, about 1% of our travel involves Durham's villages. So this is Orono, Newcastle, Uxbridge, Fort Perry, Beaverton, Sunderland, Cannington. Many of these are boardings here, so some people are going to be going in and out and involve on-demand and scheduled service. And so this is about connecting those communities that if you're without a travel option in those communities, transit may be your only way kind of in or out. The service initiatives in the plan fall into 4 major categories. The first is filling gaps in the network. So we have some places where we operate one-way services. This can mean that customers might need to take the long way around to get where they're going, and turning a 10-minute trip into 30 or 40 minutes long. We have some places where weekend and weekday services are inconsistent, and that can be frustrating for customers understanding the system. And we have some areas where off-peak services are light, and so we want to make sure that those customers who don't necessarily travel during the peak periods still have options. The second is keeping up with growth, and this is really important, and this is really the bulk of service expansion. This is new growth areas, certainly, but it's also intensifying areas. It's also about adding service within the existing network to accommodate growth elsewhere. So when a new subdivision opens on the outskirts of the built-up area, folks boarding in that area are also then going to be traveling throughout the rest of Durham, and so increasing service on the main corridors away from that growth is also supporting that growth. To that end, we want to increase frequency to meet demand and drive ridership. The region does have goals for improving our transit mode share, and more frequent service will attract more customers onto the system, and we want to operate at more times of the day. Finally, some adjustments to on-demand. So adjusting some of the trip planning rules to encourage more trip pooling so that vehicles can pick up more people at once or operate more efficiently throughout the system. And again, connecting our villages. On-demand is a critical tool for connecting those areas and making sure that the service works for those areas. Just a couple of, so the entire service plan maps are not included in this presentation. They are in the report. But just a couple that we'll go through to highlight some of the critical things that we're also thinking about and that form the base, the skeleton of our transit network, if you will. This is the regional transit connections map, and it's really important for illustrating what the Bowmanville train extension is going to do for kind of core transit services across the southern part of the region, essentially doubling the length of train service within the region there, and still providing solid bus connections to Peterborough, Newcastle, along Highway 407. I also want to highlight that Uxbridge there is also connected to the GO train network via GO bus to the Stouffville line, and that's an important part of the regional transit connection system as well. We talk about increasing frequency. We are generally not talking about increasing frequency on every route all the time, given the resources that we have to bear and the ridership demand that we see. We're focused on a number of corridors. Not surprisingly, this is the Highway 2 corridor. This is from Pickering to Bowmanville, the Bailey Victoria Consumers Corridor, where Route 917 currently operates, and the Rosslyn and Taunton corridors, and then north-south on Brock, Harwood, Salem, Baldwin, Thixon, Simcoe, and Harmony. The region's TMP also identifies a number of other corridors that would be places for this sort of frequency improvement and frequency focus. These are areas that are either currently undeveloped or not expected to reach their full kind of development potential on the span of this 5-year period, but they're certainly still on our radar. So a lot of the corridors in Seton fall into this bucket, where over time growth in that area will catch up and the areas will support high frequency service. Also includes things like Baldwin north of the existing Brooklyn area, where the development hasn't occurred, and other parts of the southern part of Durham there. And finally, the DSBRT. As many of you have probably noticed, construction is underway. 2 segments are planned to open in the next 2 years-ish. Let's refer to works on specific timelines, pardon me. The first is in Pickering from Whites Road to Brock Road with a small gap at the CN Bridge there. And the second is in Ajax. So work is ongoing now to make sure that the rest of our services are coordinated with the BRT and that we are set for opening day. Of note also, one of the 3 routes that will be using those segments of the BRT, Route 900, is also slated to connect to that Bowmanville train extension once that opens as well. So just a highlight there. Those are the kind of particular map slides I wanted to go over. So thank you for your attention, and I welcome questions.
Thank you. I just want to say, from the BRT point of view, being probably the most affected right now in construction, I want to give a shout out to the Durham Region staff because they have been extremely responsive when we have run into any kind of issues. And I just publicly want to say thank you to them because they really have been extremely good because, no one likes to be held up in traffic, right? And so I just want to say that out loud. Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Jack, for that presentation. A couple things. One slide you had up there, we talked about the ridership with seniors being only represents about 5% of ridership. We've made some specific efforts within the age-friendly community in Uxbridge, and I'm sure it's happening in other communities as well, of the almost inevitability that even people that are aging at home in time will probably be looking towards using transit. And that's a really bitter pill for them to swallow. And most, quite frankly, resist it, saying that won't happen to me. And I had hoped for their sake that they're able to drive forever. In a way, safely drive forever. We've had DRT come in to seniors' fairs and so on to try to educate them. I'd really like to see DRT promote that service, specifically educate them on how to use the on-demand app, how to use buses that are nearby, and rather than have local volunteer committees trying to encourage that and teach them, if it was a consistent messaging, some kind of advertising, Facebook they're pretty popular with now, is to let them know that the service is there. And I think it needs to go beyond once or twice a year of coming in. I know we have Ride a Bus for Free Day or whatever it is that, we take them out and try to get them comfortable, but it needs to be repeated a number of times. So just a thought, 5% is a very small piece of your ridership. I get it that you have to focus on where growth is and 30% being with students, but I'd really encourage you, or even ask if you do have a comment on what we can do to encourage our seniors to have access to transit.
Thank you for that question. It's 100% correct. It's a difficult moment where your travel habits that you've built up over decades suddenly have to change. When I'm speaking to customers about this delicately, it is also a matter of early planning. You don't want to be surprised by the 5 to 10 minute walk to the bus stop the first time you do it. It's also about staying active so that the active transportation component of that trip is seamless. So absolutely, we'll take that back to our ambassador teams and to communications. I think that some ongoing information is important. Our website has a lot of this, but I think that there's probably a promotion element to that as well that's important.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I think just repetition is really what needs to be there. And my last comment, I'll have more when you get to your report, but there's a current effort, Chair Henry was talking about at our last council meeting about the Go North of Expected, the promotion of encouraging people to migrate north, quite frankly, come out of the GTA or even come out of South Durham and move north and take advantage of all that we have to offer. I'd really like to see that integrated as well. People that, especially if they're coming out of Toronto, are very accustomed to taking transit. I'd hate for them to come here and then, don't worry, transit is coming. And I love the 5-year plan. I've seen the connections that you're trying to establish to the south. I just don't want these efforts, great that they are, both transit and then ECDEV, let's make sure that those are connected so that as we're encouraging people to come up and take advantage of all that we have in the north, that transit's very much hand in glove with them.
Absolutely. And we regularly work with Investor Arm and ECDEV, and that is also top of their mind in some of the conversations that I've had.
Appreciate that. Thank you. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation as well. So speaking of seniors, so in Clarington, we probably have the largest seniors community. I believe approximately 2,000 live in Wilmot Creek. Have you ever done anything to target that community to get them to ride the transit more often? Or
I'm not familiar with all of the outreach activities that our ambassadors and our outreach teams do. I do know that we speak to community groups throughout the region and to seniors groups throughout, but I'm not sure about that particular group. I don't know if anyone has anything to add.
so they have a wheelhouse, they have a community hub. Shouldn't we be making efforts to probably do a presentation there or something like that?
I think that absolutely any of these places are worth engaging. Any large group of customers who are interested in information or who need support understanding the system are absolutely on our list of folks we'd like to speak to.
Okay, so I would like to see that happen actually, if possible. I don't know who makes that.
Sorry, thank you, and through the chair, thanks, Jack. And I was just going to add on to what Jack said, and just a quick question: is there a community organization or a
Yes,
group
they
there?
have a whole.
So,
yeah,
so
they
maybe we
have
can
a-
reach out after
yes, I
this,
can
and
give
we
you
can get that
with the
information,
president and everything. Yeah,
and we can work with our engagement team
yeah,
to set something.
I can provide you that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Pettingill.
Yes, thanks very much. And through you, I've recently worked with some Durham staff about the Presto card, and Presto cards are only sold through Shoppers Drug Marts, and in Brock Township we don't have a Shoppers Drug Mart. But what appeals to many seniors is when you pay for a ride using your Presto card, you pay $1 less than you would pay otherwise. And my question is, I guess that's a Presto Metrolinx involvement, that's a fact. Is there any getting around it so that people don't need to have the Presto card and they can tab on? Why does this disparity exist, and will it always exist? What can we do? Thanks.
Thank you, and through the chair. So we collaborate with Presto. So you'll hear us talking about over the next year, the next operating agreement, and the 905s. We're all part of the same agreement. So we work closely with our 905 counterparts in looking at and talking about open payment and fares and those issues. So at this current time, there is a $1. We treat an open payment transaction as a cash transaction at this point in time, and that's been a decision that's been in place since open payment was first launched. There has been some questioning as to why that exists, but at this point in time, again, looking at the Presto card and the convenience of that and the data, that's where it came from, was that they were very infrequent taps. We reward loyalty with better prices through the virtual card, the monthly passes, as well as the tap. So that loyalty cost through Presto is sort of what drove that, and that's the history of where it's come from.
Thanks. And I'm very happy to know that it's possible to get a Presto machine outside of a Shoppers Drug Mart if there aren't any. So in Brock Township, we may be looking at the municipal building or the library in Beaverton, which would really help our seniors access a Presto card. Thanks.
Did you want to read it? I just had one question around the One Connects projects that the province is funding, going from. Is it a Durham bus that drives into Scarborough and then you transfer onto TTC, or is that a GO bus?
Both.
Okay.
DRT operates 2 routes into Scarborough. The Highway 2 service along the Pulse service along King, Dundas, Kingston Road goes to U of T Scarborough. And Route 920, which operates as sort of a wiggle through the region, and then along Kingston Road, and then along Shepherd Avenue towards Scarborough Center Station. So
Okay.
probably it's the 920 that you're referring to.
Okay. And since that came in, have we noticed increased ridership on our bus for that?
Since the one fare came in, it's difficult to separate out the effect of one thing or another, just because that sort of happened toward the tail end of pandemic recovery, and post-secondary travel is all mixed in there, and a lot of employment travel. So really hard to find the signal in the noise there.
Okay.
But what factor is about what? We have noticed an increase in travel to and from Toronto, though.
One last question. In your 5-year plan, I was really happy that seniors, the S word, was included in that because although it seems like a small percentage, I think, we're all getting older. Like, it's the reality of who we are. So I'm really hoping that that we can make some progress on helping our seniors move from cars into bus service.
Absolutely. So we don't tend to tailor our services to particular groups,
Yeah,
but where
I know
demand
that.
exists, we
Non-peak riders, how's that?
Absolutely.
Is that a better way of calling
Well,
them?
where any demand exists, however we characterize them, we want to be able to meet that if we can do it efficiently. And this is a group that, or a time of day where there are opportunities that we want to explore and find out how to do that efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, and I think if we increase, even if it's pilot, to increase the non-peak drivers, how we communicate that will be incredibly important because non-peak drivers tend not to have the technical necessarily capability or trust actually to know when things change, right? So yeah, I think communication is going to be key to trying to drive that ridership if we can. So anyway, I think that's my last question. Anybody else? No? Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we do have correspondence from Ajax resident Doug Glass. Is there any questions on his correspondence? Good. Oh, I need a mover. Commissioner Penningale, Commissioner Garrett, to receive for information. No questions? Okay, hang on. Recommendation is to refer for consideration for report 2026 DRT 4, 2026 DRT 5, and report DRT 6. Items. Thank you. If there's no questions, all in favor? I think, no, I already did that, didn't I? That was the recommendation for the correspondence, right? Yeah. So I have Commissioner Penningale, Commissioner Garrett, no questions, all in favor. Perfect. Are you in favor over there? Are you listening? It's like mom talking. Okay, reports. I think I can just move all of these, right? All three? Okay. Second it, and is there any polls? No polls? Huh? Yours is a poll? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Commissioner Garrett, did you want to poll?
I have a question about 7.1. Yeah, all three, actually.
Okay. Never mind.
You should have been worried about the one at that end, not us.
At least I'm paying attention.
How to follow the ball.
All right, settle down, children. Okay, I guess, Commissioner Garrett, you have the floor.
On all three, apparently. Do you want to
wanna-
get them on the floor first?
Yeah, do 7-1, your question on 7-1.
Sure, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
So I just want to confirm, and I think this is the things that we were talking about earlier in the presentation, about the unaccommodated boarding rate. It's been on a trend since August, and that's what we were referring to about those, I think it was 5 or 6 steps, action steps that were being taken to address that? Have I got these two
Through
connected?
the chair, basically, yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. And then one I just noted that talked about Presto ridership or ridership using the Presto card. It looks to be like 93%. Would that mean therefore that 7% is both, I think debit and credit's accepted on all buses now and on the on-demand vehicles? It's true. So 7% is both debit, credit, and cash.
Through the chair, the debit credit would be considered a Presto tap.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's part of that
Okay.
7%.
So 7% would be cash.
Yes.
I'm a little premature and it's not in this report, but I'm interested in learning more about that. If there's specific areas within the region that are higher users of cash than not, I would think that managing cash is significantly more expensive and cumbersome for the organization rather than tapping any of those three options that you talked about. So just is there more investigation taking place, and can we look forward to a report related to whether or not cash should continue to be accepted across the network.
Thank you. And through the chair, very timely question. Next month, Chris Hormberg and team will be presenting an updated fare strategy. And that is part of the discussion will be around cash and direction moving forward. So I'm confident that next month we'll be able to have a good conversation about that.
Yeah, I look forward to that because it's not only just the handling of cash by the drivers, certainly the staff that has to process it, the fare boxes that we need in order to accommodate that. It does bring, as we move into cashless, I know it can't be everywhere, but it really brings into question whether we need to continue to take cash fully across the network. So I look forward to that report. On 7.1, Madam Chair, that's the only questions that I had.
Commissioner Anderson, did you have a question on 7.1?
Yeah, just to follow up on the cash. Okay. We have a lot of homeless people, etc. They don't have credit cards. Most of them are debit cards. They would be at a disadvantage if we have a cashless system, wouldn't that?
So through the chair, I think many organizations and transit agencies have gone there. GoBus, it's cashless, for example, and many other international transit agencies have. That would be part of the consideration that we would have to look is how do we support the unbanked to ensure that they can ride DRT, and that'll be part of the discussion that will happen next week when you see the report coming forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that's a part of the discussion and they are not at a disadvantage. Thank you.
Any other questions on 7.1? If not, I need a mover and a seconder. Chair what? I do? Yeah. But that was for all three. That's okay. Oh, never mind. Okay. 7.2, Commissioner. Commissioner Garrett, did you want to talk about 7.2?
There we go. Now I'd be happy to. Thank you. There's comments in 7.2 about the unaccommodated riders, and GM Homes has talked about what we're doing with that. Chair Crawford, you and I have talked along the way about the best way for users to encourage a fixed route is to be loading up on demand, and the data that's collected for unaccommodated gives us a good indication of where additional support's needed. I've got a little bit of a concern with that model in that we're looking for people to continue to request rides when frankly they know they're probably not going to get one. So if I was one of those users and saying, well, there's more likely that I'll get service provided here if I continue to ask and continue to not get it, we're putting the onus on the rider to create that data. So I'm just encouraging DRT to look at other ways to focus on that rather than the pure data. So just to put a finer point on it, if ridership's declining, the data is not going to encourage you to provide ridership in that area. See where the dichotomy is that's in that situation? I'm through you, Madam Chair, to the GM.
Yeah, through the chair, I understand what you're saying, and we'll take that back to, again, ensure that it's just, what I'm hearing you say is that don't just rely on the unaccommodated rate. There's other factors that need to be considered, and we'll take that back. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you. That's all I had on that one, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Okay, so Commissioner Garrett on 7.3.
Does anybody else want to speak? It's okay if you do. I think Korea's got something to add too. There was a comment, it's item 4.5 within report 7.3, and it makes reference to on-demand, I think it's in urban areas, to be within 1,000 meters of any area. So I think what it's saying is that the target is to have a place of pickup for on-demand service within a kilometer for everybody in the urban areas. First, I'll just ask, and I'm not sure, GM, if I should look at you or if I should look over to staff. Am I reading that right? It's on 4.5.
So through the chair, I'm going to defer any questions on the service guidelines
Okay.
to Anthony and or Jack.
So presently, the guideline there is 800 meters. And so that does two things. Yes, it's about how we place pickup points. And it's also about how the trip planning algorithm might ask a customer to behave. So if there is an existing pickup 795 meters from your point of origin, it may send you there to get your on-demand pickup so that the trip can be pooled and delivered more efficiently, the same vehicle, same pickup time. The threshold that's proposed here is to increase that to 1,000 meters, reflecting the inner parts of subdivisions, which can often be a 1,000 meter walk from the arterial and collector roads on the outside of that subdivision where stops are located. For most trips, this wouldn't have an effect because most trips are not bumping up against the 800 meter threshold now, but it would allow the system to operate a little bit more efficiently.
I'm concerned with that. I think to extend it, 800 meters is a long way for most people to walk anyway that are going to be using the on-demand. And I've already referred with some compassion to seniors. A 15-year-old student wouldn't notice the difference. A 70-year-old, 80-year-old, 90-year-old individual who's trying to go and get their groceries, to have them walk a kilometer to take advantage of on-demand transit is not something that I can support from a 5-year development process. So my ask would be if you can go back and look at that particular section before implementing this particular recommendation.
I think the other thing, if I can add to that, is the blanket of, you don't even know what, like, some people don't even have sidewalks, I would think, right? So it's also not only distance, but it's condition of where, I know that's not your responsibility, but it does add to a safety factor for someone to walk a kilometer to try to get a bus. Who were
This
you
is for
directing that
on-demand.
at?
Sorry?
Yeah. But were you, sorry, on demand, sorry, not a bus. Did you want to talk to that? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bag of milk. You would.
So just, I guess, and kind of a thread with the report with on-demand and the comment about what we're doing to optimize our capacity, that, there is an impact, and what is being proposed here is looking to maximize efficiencies, create more capacity, and better utilize resources. If we don't do that, it means we'll be less effective, less efficient. Understanding the rationale for it, that would be the impact of staying at the 800 meters for those on-demand trips.
I appreciate there's a trade-off. I just think we're going in the wrong direction, quite frankly. As we try to encourage people to use on-demand, we're now making them walk potentially further. So I'm not sure what there needs to be a motion or reconsideration, or if it just has to be accepted, but I do have a concern with it.
Through the chair, maybe I'll just ask Jack again as our chief planner, comments about the 1,000 meter distance and what we're trying to achieve versus retaining the 800 meters, and then perhaps we can have a discussion about where to go next.
So, as I said before, it is really not about changing most of the trips, but giving the trip planning algorithm more flexibility in edge cases where perhaps capacity is strained and a second pickup could take place if only the customer were asked to walk further. I agree that this is a trade-off and that the quality and quantity of on-demand trips is a perpetual balance, and that's what the other report is speaking to as well. That on one end, if we were giving everybody door-to-door trips at exactly the time they wanted, capacity would be limited. That's an extreme example of the same trade-off, but is what we are attempting to achieve here, which is to maximize the number of trips that we're able to deliver. If that trade-off has swung too far in the other direction when it comes to the walk distance, then this is a good venue for that conversation.
We're trying to figure out what to do with you. I'm gonna go to Commissioner Pettingill, and then we'll come back to you.
Fine. Yep.
Thanks very much, and through you. Certainly optimizing capacity is going to be at the cost of the level of service. But in response to Commissioner Garrett's comment, that 1,000 or 800 meters doesn't mean that the rural on-demand user isn't going to have a vehicle come up to their house. Okay, so that's clear. And I mean, to me, that's obviously really important because where they're in a rural setting, it doesn't make sense, to walk to the highway. But I do appreciate that this system gets riders to the closest other larger level of system, to the closest bus, and that there could be wait times, and they're trying to maximize the number of people in cars. But I do agree that this can be incredibly inconvenient compared to a bus that goes by regularly or compared to having a car, because if you go to a medical appointment and your return time is 3 hours later, which it easily can be on demand, that's not providing a level of service that people who live rurally expect. But I know this is all averaged out in terms of all of the municipalities and the populations and what people can expect. I just want to ask a detailed question on, I think this is a recent improvement. When people order a ride on demand, I think they previously had to do it just the day before, like after midnight or just before midnight, and now they get to do it 3 days in advance. Is that accurate? Is this a very recent change, or?
Yeah, through the chair, we implemented those adjustments this past fall.
Okay.
So you're correct. Customers eligible for Specialized could book up to 7 days in advance, with the balance of on-demand customers the day before. And now those windows have been adjusted to 4 and 3 days. So on-demand customers have 48 hours additional to try and book and secure transportation.
I just want to really thank you for that, because I knew somebody whose daughter had an early morning nursing shift, and she had to get from Cannington down to Port Perry, but she couldn't afford to stay up late the night before to make the call. So this is very good. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Garrett, with regards to your request to keep it at 800 meters, we need to have, if we can get the majority of the committee to agree that that stay the same, that would be direction to staff to do that, as opposed to making a motion. So would everyone agree that this is a good thing? Online? Yeah. Okay. So we'll take that as direction, correct? Okay. You wrote it down, right? Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. And so I can't for the life of me remember who the mover, and I think it was Chair Henry and, oh, yeah, one more question. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Okay, there you go.
I mean, it's an important report. We've solicited community input on the 5-year plan, and this is the materialization of that. So, it's an important document, and I appreciate as well the comment that it's likely to face tactics along the way that will mean it needs to be adjusted. We all know, it's a bit of a side rant, but we all know that council committed to 2% of the levy per year and fully supported it. I couldn't tell you whether it was unanimous or not, but it was in place, and conditions changed such that never happened since. So just to say that you're likely, I love the forward look and recognizing there'll be headwinds as you go into that. The last one I was going to point out, Madam Chair, is on 4.9, and GM Homes and I have talked about the declining access to on-demand in the rural communities. And this kind of feeds on my previous one, that we can't just go off of the data to say that ridership is declining. We need to do something to reverse that. And Bill and I have had a discussion about that. And it's just a comment more than a question to say it's regional transit. And if I was sitting in GM Homes' chair, I'd be looking at how do I provide the most I can for the heaviest used areas. And I would be doing the same thing, except I'm not in that job and I have a different job, and very much interested in making sure that as we look at the 5-year plan, that it is a regional service, that we do look beyond the big green areas along the south, and don't forget our neighbors to the east, and don't forget the neighbors to the north, to make sure that it can't be just, as much as I'm a data guy, I'm going to talk out of the other side of my face, we can't be purely focused on what the ridership is. It's got to be about more where we want to go. So I encourage you to continue to look around the entire area, even though we only represent together 8% of the population up to the north. And I think, in fairness to everybody else, I'll stop at that point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just the seniors.
No, that's it. That's it.
No, it's fine if you want to keep going. Are you done? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Okay, I think my mover was Chair Henry. And seconder was Commissioner Brunner. Okay. I don't see any other questions, and we have talked on all three items. So if not, I'm going to ask for all in favor. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right. Let's see. I have no advisory committee resolutions, no confidential. Is there any other business? Oh, okay. Oh, well, our next meeting is April the 8th, by the way, just in case. All right. All in favor? Oh, I need a seconder for adjournment. Commissioner Watton, all in favor? Thank you very much.